Thank you, Rachel, for kicking us off. And welcome to all of the participants today. At ITS America, we dream of a future world that is transformed by intelligent mobility, one that is safer, greener, and smarter. And, we always start with safety. About 40,000 Americans die on our roadways every year. It's about 100 a day. Or just over, but that number globally is 1.35 million. And, so what is a really big problem in the United States is a huge problem, obviously, around the world. And, we believe that technology deployed at scale is the key to solving that challenge. But another part of our vision is for the world to be greener. And we know that about 29% of U.S. greenhouse gas emissions come from the transportation sector. And so, President Biden has laid down a pretty aggressive goal of reducing those emissions by 50% over the next decade, or by 2030. And so it's going to take a partnership for all of us here in the United States, but also global partners to help solve this challenge. And, our ITS America members are the thought leaders when it comes to deploying technology at scale, the place where people come for innovation, and where I believe we're going to find a lot of these solutions in terms of solving some of these just massive problems. Now, ITS America and USTDA are partnering because we have a lot to offer, we have a lot to learn, and we are just really excited. We're going to be coordinating with USTDA to create opportunities for American companies to share their innovation and know-how abroad, to learn from what's going on globally, and hopefully we'll be able to culminate with some great interaction at the ITS World Congress in Los Angeles in 2022. So really excited that we're kicking off this partnership. Great to partner with an organization like those you are members of, and an agency like USTDA. And to kick us off, I'm going to turn it over to Anna Aguilera with USTDA. Anna?
Much. USTDA is really excited to be here today to talk to you about U.S. government capabilities and about the Global Partnership for Climate Smart Infrastructure. And we're very excited to have ITS America as a launch partner for this flagship USTDA initiative. So as you know, on April 23rd this year, President Biden announced the USTDA Global Partnership for Climate Smart Infrastructure, which aims to connect U.S. industry to major energy and transportation infrastructure investments in emerging markets. The initiative will support the rebuilding of the U.S. middle class through the export of U.S. manufactured goods and services, and enhance economic recovery through climate smart infrastructure development for our partners and allies globally. The partnership will leverage USTDA's project preparation and partnership building tools, which you'll hear about a little bit later in the presentation from my partner at USTDA, for the use of US technologies and services in overseas climate smart infrastructure projects. So I just wanted to read the quote from President Biden when he launched the initiative. He said, "Nations that work together to invest in the cleaner economy will reap rewards for their citizens. The United States is committed. We are committed to making those investments to grow our economy here at home while connecting with markets around the world. For example, we are launching a new global partnership for climate smart infrastructure. This will create good paying jobs here in America by supporting development of new clean infrastructure in our partner countries. These are the sort of partnerships that are going to be good for all of us." Maybe we can go to the next slide. So the partnership has a number of aspects. So we work in developing markets, as my colleague will talk about later, and we want to help put them on a sustainable climate pathway with US manufactured goods and services in the transportation and energy spaces. So we want to connect US industry to major clean energy and transportation infrastructure projects in emerging markets. And we want to support US jobs through the export of US manufactured goods and services. You can go to the next slide. So we have a number of US industry partners for our launch. Obviously ITSA, we also have the American Clean Power Association, National Electrical Manufacturers Association, Solar Energy Industries Association, and the US Chamber of Commerce. And then the next slide. And then we also have government partners, some of which you'll hear from today. So we have the Export-Import Bank of the United States, Department of Commerce, Energy, the State Department, and the Department of Transportation. And so what we want to do through the partnership is hear what your priorities are as industry. What do you want in terms of knowledge and resources to get projects and equipment and services into emerging markets? And so we want to continue a dialogue with our industry partners to talk about your priorities, and we can also communicate to you what sorts of tools we have at the ready as the United States government to help you achieve those goals. And we'll talk about that a little bit today. And so some of the things that we plan on doing as part of the partnership, we're going to launch a call for proposals for projects, and we will be circulating that call for proposals to our partners, including you, so that we can start funding some really great projects that potentially use your equipment and services. We want to host these sorts of meetings with you all to hear your priorities and tell you about ours. We want to host virtual conferences that highlight US technologies and goods and services in developing markets. And then we want to host what we call reverse trade missions, where we bring buyers of goods over to the United States to see what's being manufactured here and the best of what the US has to offer. And we also want to get involved in your programming, your conferences, their things, so that we can continue this dialogue about bringing the best of what US has to offer overseas. So go to the next slide. So in the energy space, these are the sorts of activities that for right now we are thinking of funding through the partnership. And we can go beyond this too, but this is just sort of a basic list of where we're looking right now based on what we know that the government's priorities are, what we hear from our partners, and what we know is a priority in a lot of our emerging market partner countries. And then the next slide is in clean transportation. So speaking with DOT and some of our other partners, this is just an initial list of some project ideas that we have come up with just to get the juices flowing on what sorts of things that we think are fundable in our emerging market partner countries. So with that, I think that's it for the launch of the partnership. Again, we are very, very excited to have you all on board and can't wait to work together over the next couple of years on this. So I'll turn it over to the next speaker. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Anna. And that was a really fabulous sort of lead up into the Department of Transportation's presentation. And before I get started, let me quickly introduce myself. My name is Jason Hill. I serve as the regional manager for our Western Hemisphere portfolio. However, I've previously worked in many other regions, including South and Southeast Asia and Africa. So one of the sort of topical areas that I do a lot of work with at the department is our smart cities and smart mobility engagement with our foreign partners. And just to kind of set the stage for where this presentation falls, I'll begin and we'll be handing it off to Commerce and then TDA. So sort of telling the story from the perspective of the project lifecycle and showing where the capabilities of the Department of Transportation and our other USG colleagues sort of fit together to create an almost a total package for companies and our partners at ITS America and beyond. And so let's move to the next slide. I thought it'd be useful to talk a little bit about what drives us as the Department of Transportation. And, when we talk about our international engagement, we have a set of policy goals that sort of informs how we want to engage with our overseas counterparts. First and foremost, we seek to advance the department's policies addressing climate, equity, emerging technologies, and high quality, resilient infrastructure development. And we do that through our international engagement, which includes technical assistance and capacity building. We promote our standards, guidance, best practices, and products and services as being the gold standard in the transportation sector and beyond, and addressing issues that impede U.S. companies' market access, operations, and sales. And so that's really speaking to you, our audience, We are here to support you, to support the technologies and innovations that you're driving and help sort of give them a megaphone to the world. And through our government-to-government relationships, we're able to promote high-quality data-driven standards and guidance, and then use our technical assistance capabilities to highlight best practices, highlight the products and services that your companies are innovating. And finally, we seek to identify targeted opportunities for international engagement to advance the delivery and operation of high quality and resilient transportation infrastructure, leading to better performing systems that generate economic opportunities both for our industry, but also the foreign transportation user. So really selling how the technologies and innovations, practices, guidance, all of these things together really create something that is beneficial to a foreign counterpart so that a user there will be able to reach their own economic opportunity. Next slide. So I want to spend a little bit of time talking about how we as the department engage with a foreign counterpart, because we do it at a lot of different levels, and there's a lot of opportunities, I think, to support your companies and support sort of a story that promotes US technologies and innovations. We do it regionally, we do it nationally, we step down to state and provincial levels, and then we even work municipally. So really trying to identify opportunities at all these different levels to share knowledge, share best practice, and really promote the best of what you have. I think at a regional scale, I want to share an example of where we were working with South and Southeast Asian governments to help build capacity for public-private partnerships. So one of the challenges we've noticed is a lot of our countries, especially in developing regions, really don't understand what a good P3 concept looks like, really how to finance properly a lot of the infrastructure development that rapid urbanization is driving the need for. And I know my colleague, Michael from the Foreign Service, or Commercial Service, sorry, who will be speaking next, will talk a lot about this challenge too. But, really trying to help our partners understand, what projects can be delivered through what financing models, and then going in with targeted technical assistance and helping a foreign country or a region write the type of guidance into their laws that they need to deliver high quality, bankable, infrastructure projects that have real ROI opportunities, and also integrate a lot of the types of mature planning, mature asset management principles, ITS technologies, and other things that those projects need to be successful. And so in a lot of ways, this is really trying to highlight the sort of gold standard that is a US or international best practice for transportation development, and really seek to sort of impede the ability of malign actors to be able to develop infrastructure that might not be in the best interest of the recipient country. At a national scale, we've done a lot of work, to our key target countries. I wanted to give an example from South Africa, actually, where we had challenges at the border where we were approached by a US automaker who was literally having to fly cars to East Africa because they couldn't get them over the borders from South Africa into its Southern African neighbors. And so we identified an opportunity to engage with the, I believe, 8 different agencies that had border equities in South Africa, bring them together, not only to develop a plan that worked internally for them as a government, but be giving them the tools to be able to do really good quality cross-border planning. So thinking about the roads that lead up to the border post on both sides, how they make sure that the throughput for commercial vehicles is maintained, and then teaching them the ability to work with their neighbors to be able to deliver a much faster, much more reliable and efficient throughput for freight vehicles. So again, speaking to the story of identifying a problem and then being able to use our resources to drive, I think, really good technical assistance that isn't just a webinar, but really something that drives change. At the state and provincial level, we've done similar work where in Indonesia, the island of Lombok, which is right near Bali, is seeking to build a new airport to sort of meet the demand from tourists who want to travel to the region. And so we heard from several US companies that were interested in working on the construction of that airport, that they were having trouble sort of standing out from much cheaper bids from foreign counterparts that maybe weren't going to deliver the best quality solution. So we went in with a team and actually spent several days working with the local government there to speak to the importance of doing it right the first time, the challenges with building airports and the international standards set by ICAO and others that really needed to be thought about and maybe weren't properly considered by these foreign bidders. So again, really targeted technical assistance that helps our foreign counterparts understand their needs better. And so that way, when a US company seeks to go into that market, there's sort of the ground has been laid for them to be successful in their bids, because the local agency that's going to be looking at these bids understands better what they need to do to make the project successful. And then finally, I just want to take a minute, since I'm talking to an ITS America crowd here, about maybe one of the most exciting things that we're talking about in the smart city space, which is our US ASEAN Smart Cities Partnership. And so this is a program that's aimed at the 26, what they call ASEAN pilot cities for their smart cities network. And so we as the department are working with the State Department to identify 5 peer-to-peer partnerships between US and Southeast Asian cities. And these peer-to-peer partnerships are really meant to identify US technologies, practices, services that would help an ASEAN city, typically a very large one with huge urbanization challenges and congestion challenges, be able to sort of improve and think about how to plan their future infrastructure better. And so, for example, we have the city of Los Angeles partnering with Jakarta, Indonesia, on mobility integration that seeks to drive down the use of private vehicles, and instead looking at mobility technologies and also sort of promoting mass transit through better payment integration. So these are projects are really focused on reducing congestion, having really strong climate co-benefits, and being able to really help our rapidly urbanizing neighbors in the region, and sort of improve how they're doing things by looking at policies and planning, and then the integration of the technology. Next slide. So I also just wanted to give you a taste of where we engage, and we do that through a lot of bilateral and also multilateral fora. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this slide, but just to point out that we have really deep connections into many of the sort of leading multilateral spaces: the G7, ASEAN, APEC, the European Union, the International Transportation Forum, Organization of American States, Pacific Regional Infrastructure Facility. So we have a lot of places for, if you are, an innovator, you're a company that's seeking to sort of interact with peers in these different multilateral spaces, we can help be an avenue to get you that access and promote your technologies, your innovations as part of a greater sort of US story. Next slide. So finally, I just want to talk a minute about sort of how we can support you and how our efforts support sort of broader US government initiatives. I think importantly, and when we were talking about sort of where this presentation sits within the story of the project lifecycle, DOT's role is really strong in building government-to-government transportation engagement early. And so we like to work with our foreign counterparts to build the policy and regulatory foundations that lead to the development of high quality infrastructure. And that's from the project plans and RFPs all the way to the long-term operations and asset management of the things that these countries have purchased. And so I think that's where we can really, I think, serve you best, is by, being in communication with you, with our partners at the Commerce Department, TDA, and others, to understand these are the target markets for you and where you might be seeing challenges in those target markets, so that we can get in there early and help sort of mitigate any problems you might have through technical level conversations, really things that step outside of maybe that higher level political story. We as transportation experts and technical, teams can go in there and really speak to these folks and I think make them a little more comfortable in how they should be building their sort of standards, platforms, guidance, so that the projects and RFPs that they're putting out really match what you need. We also, like I mentioned on the slide that mentioned our different levels of engagement, we do a lot of targeted technical assistance and capacity building work. So we really want to be there to help resolve challenges faced by the US private sector when you're competing for projects. We like to work also on resolving standards and market access issues that impede US companies' ability to enter and compete in markets. And so we really want to address issues where we might be seeing countries favoring foreign standards and really try to unwrite that story. And I think that's particularly important as we're talking more about areas like electric and automated and connected vehicles, where a lot of the conversations about how these systems are going to be regulated are sort of happening as we speak, making sure that our foreign counterparts understand not to jump ahead and regulate in a way that might put our companies or our technologies at a disadvantage. And I think finally, we really, to that point, want to expose our foreign counterparts to emerging technologies, particularly in the developing world, who, we talk a lot through our international bodies about, with our foreign counterparts about these new technologies, and some don't believe that they are coming as fast as they are. And so a lot of our journey and kind of job as DOT is to intercede there and really help our developing counterparts understand that they need to be thinking a lot about where these technologies are going. And I think this is especially true when we talk about the climate partnership, because so many of these technologies that are really going to change the game and advance the climate action narrative are the ones where we're going to be competing with a lot of malign influences, a lot of foreign competition, and really making sure that, again, we're going in there and setting the bar and setting that foundation so that our companies, our standards and practices are really the ones that win the day. Next slide, please. So I'm going to leave you there, but I just wanted to highlight that, we have a team that works on this. I'm a part of that team, but my colleagues, Nicole Bambus, who does our trade investment piece, Sheila Hilton Ingram and Joe Trainey cover the world. So if you are looking for information on a particular region, or you have a market access issue that you've been talking with colleagues at Commerce about, or an embassy but want to get a transportation spin, I'll leave you with this slide so that you can reach us. But all of us from the Office of International Transportation and Trade really want to continue to work with you guys, especially as we're standing up a lot of DOT's role in the climate partnership, but more broadly making sure that U.S. transportation technologies, products and services are really winning the day worldwide. And so with that, thank you for allowing me to take this 10 minutes and share a little bit about what the Department of Transportation is doing. Let me now toss it to my colleague, Michael Rosales from the U.S. Commercial Service, who will talk a bit about Commerce's capabilities. Thanks again.
Thanks, Jason. Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon. I know it's already afternoon for some people, but my name is Michael Rosales. I'm with the U.S. Commercial Service. I am the director of the Auto and Smart Mobility team. And what we do is our goal is to help U.S. companies sell overseas through the support of the embassies and consulates worldwide. Next slide, please. Just give you a background real quick. I'm going to share some more information with you, but we are wherever you want to be. We have about 107 offices in the U.S. and about well, I'll just put it this way. Our teams are broken up by industry, and I handle automotive and smart mobility, which is intelligence mobility, right? And we have about 109 colleagues in the U.S. field and about 136 overseas at the embassies and consulates covering smart mobility and intelligent transportation systems. Next slide, please. I just want to share with you what we do, the U.S. Commercial Service. So we help small and medium-sized enterprises and also large companies, but our mandate is to assist U.S. companies with product that contains at least 51% U.S. content. So I put the formula there: final price of good minus total value contributed by non-U.S. or foreign sources equals a percentage content for U.S. manufactured goods. And that helps us kind of identify where the company is. I know in technology, there's a lot of components that can come from everywhere, but we use this formula more or less to kind of help us see where the companies are that we can assist as being 51% U.S. content. Next slide, please. And then how can we help, right? Our primary approach is what can we do? We provide export counseling, market intelligence, business matchmaking, and commercial diplomacy. Next slide, please. So this is the current mood, right? This is me, Tom Cruise, saying, help me help you. We've all seen this movie, right? Jerry Maguire. And then y'all are like, Mike, show me the money, right? That's what y'all want, right? And I get it, because my wife and I own a physical therapy clinic, and we've also done some business opportunities before. And when you're running a business, you're trying to look at your ROI. You're trying to say, okay, I have X amount of money and I'm trying to grow my business. Maybe I'm selling in the city or in a state or maybe another state, but how do I really make an impact and how do I go global, right? And so that's where we come in. We help you go global. So next slide, please. This is what I'm going to show you. This is where your future starts today. Okay, there's an event coming up next Monday. And Elizabeth, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen if you don't mind. All right, here we go. All right, perfect. So I'm just going to walk you through this event that we're putting together. So over the last year, chaos has kind of bred innovation, right? And so we have to figure out, how do we keep on doing business outside of how we used to do it, right? So our previous SWOT, our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, are going to be different from what they're going to be moving forward, right? And right now, currently, it's kind of hard for people to travel internationally, but that doesn't mean that we can't do business internationally. So what I've created in my garage while I was working and teleworking from home, I put together this program called Smart Mobility Drives Europe and Eurasia. And we were able to work with our colleagues overseas through the embassies and consulates worldwide. And what we were able to do is work specifically, I'm going to minimize this. We were specifically able to work with our Europe and Eurasia colleagues who are very interested in intelligent mobility, everything that ITS is doing, everything that we're doing, everything that USTDA and DOT are doing. We're just trying to help companies look outside the box, right? And what we've created is this event where the registration is for $125. And the good thing about this fee is that it covers any company. And it can be multiple people within a company. So we're not trying to break the bank. I'm just trying to be able to make a good ROI for the company. The challenge is that the deadline registration is Wednesday, June 9th. And I want to show you who should participate. So there's 4 silos that we're looking at here: automotive technology, machine learning, ITS, and autonomous technology. And if you fall within these areas, I want to share with you real quick that we have a list of companies that have already registered from countries overseas. So you'll see Austria, Bulgaria, a ton from Finland. And then you'll see Greece, Kazakhstan, Portugal, Romania, Spain, Turkey, Ukraine. If you're interested in any of these markets, this should be the event you want to attend. We have these companies that are interested in meeting with US companies to either create partnerships or somehow start developing business relationships to benefit the US company. And that's my goal, is to help US companies succeed. Looking at it on paper, we can't say, America, global domination, that's what we want, but we can jumpstart this industry together, right? How can we work together to make this happen? And so you'll see here, these are the companies, these are their websites, and these are the positions within the companies. We have CEO levels, we have head of mobility, we have director of sales and marketing. These are the people that I believe US companies want to meet with to create new opportunities. And I'm going to go back to the website real quick. And I want to share with you that we also have a smart mobility exporter resource guide that we created for you to use, and it's free. All you have to do is click on this link, and I'm going to go to right now. And this is what you see. The easiest way to access this information is to type in here, like I have it here, ITS plus Finland. These pages show exactly what we're talking about related to ITS and the buzzword Finland. You can also go to the contents and see the whole publication. It's 175 pages that we put together. This market intelligence was created by our colleagues overseas at the embassies and consulates. So I just wanted to share with you that you can also click on this page and it'll hyperlink you to whatever location you want. And it gives you best prospects, summary, market entry, tells you where the capital is, the population, the GDP, the currency, and the language. Our goal is to give you information that you need now to strategize in your further development. We also list the industry associations, 2021 in-person and virtual events, and then we also brand our colleagues overseas. These are the people that are going to be at the event as well. You'll see here as I scroll down, we're also working with industry associations and partners. So for example, state of California, North Carolina, Michigan, state of Washington, state of Illinois, have one more for me, and Alabama are all paying for their companies to participate free of charge. Michigan is reimbursing up to 75%, but the other states are reimbursing up to 100%. I also want to share with you that we're also working with our industry associations, because it's not just a US thing or an overseas thing, it's a global issue, right? We're trying to look at what President Biden is saying is, how do we lead as America, right? How do we keep on leading in industry? And so we have industry associations that are on board and they're sharing with their members. And really, this is how we're able to bridge the gap, is work with our colleagues overseas at the embassies, get them to get their partners interested, coming to this platform, and let's start talking shop. Let's start trying to see if we can create business. These are our colleagues overseas that are available to meet with US companies as well. And just to kind of give you a side note, everybody here, we all get our, we're all on your payroll, whether or not you see it. If you're a US company and you pay taxes, we're here to help you and help you grow. Looking at the people that here, you can see that it's just not, smart mobility. It could be cybersecurity, smart cities. There's a lot of application. It's, one industry doesn't sell to another industry. They sell to whoever will buy that product. And our goal is to bring all the right players to the table to help you grow your business. And you can go here on the website and you can see exactly what people are here from all over the world, well, from all over Europe and Eurasia. We are also looking at doing this within the Western Hemisphere in a couple of months. So Jason, I'll be reaching out to you to share that as well. The challenge that we have for this event is that, and I'll share with you here, it's 7 a.m. to 12 noon Eastern Standard Time, because that's when Europe and Eurasia is open. Looking at it on paper, you have about 50 meetings available for the week. And at $125, it's awesome, right? The other thing too is if you wanted to share that, if it was me and this is how I created it, I would basically buy two entries, right? One for a person of my business to meet with all the foreign companies, right? And be able to connect with. Another one to meet with all of our colleagues at the embassies and consulates and connect with them. This is not going to be just a one and done kind of thing. It's a way to help us continue to develop dynamic conversations to help people grow the business after the event. And that's our goal, is to continuously helping our companies grow. And I'm going to go out real quick. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Sorry for this. Let me see. Here it is. I'm learning this. I'm so sorry. Stop video. Perfect. So Elizabeth, if you can just go to the last slide. Just want to share my contact information. If you have any questions, happy to help. And I'm going to be passing it on to USTDA next. Thank you so much.
Great. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Mike. My name is Kevin Torres. I'm a country manager on our Indo-Pacific team at the U.S. Trade and Development Agency, and I lead our agency's surface transportation activities in South and Southeast Asia. I will be presenting today in place of my colleague, Claire Sorowski, our regional manager for West Africa and our climate team co-lead. So today, I'd like to tell you a little bit about USTDA, our tools, and how we can engage, how you can engage with our agency on international project opportunities in the transportation sector. We move on to the next slide. USTDA is the US government's project preparation agency. We provide early stage support to infrastructure projects in emerging markets around the world by funding grant-based technical assistance, feasibility studies, and pilot projects. Our goal is to connect overseas project sponsors with leading US companies that can provide expertise and cutting-edge products and services, all of which help to move a project from the early concept stage all the way to financing and implementation. USTDA works exclusively in high-growth emerging markets that require quality infrastructure. And our partners really welcome USTDA's support, because infrastructure development generates economic growth, and because our partners are seeking the solutions that US companies can provide. We have extensive history doing this work, and to date have supported more than 4,000 project activities in more than 130 markets. So how exactly do we accomplish our mission? If we go to the next slide, USTDA approaches its mission by funding early stage project preparation activities that lay the groundwork for an infrastructure project to be financed and implemented. Our toolkit includes feasibility studies, technical assistance, and pilot projects. USTDA also supports partnership building activities, including reverse trade missions that connect overseas buyers with US sellers. We bring delegations of foreign project sponsors to the United States to observe the design, manufacture, and operation of US products and services that can advance the delegation's infrastructure development goals. And in the process, we build mutually beneficial partnerships between US companies and overseas project sponsors. Next slide, please. USTDA is really a demand-driven agency, and we respond to the infrastructure priorities of our partner countries. We work particularly in the main infrastructure sector, so our work is focused on the ICT sector, the energy sector, transportation, agriculture, and healthcare. Next slide, please. We like to say that we have the results to show for our success. For every $1 that USTDA programs through our project preparation activities, we generate $112 in exports of US goods and services. And that has led to over $74 billion in US exports over USTDA's history. Next slide, please. The agency's transportation portfolio supports the development of sustainable infrastructure solutions in the aviation sector as well as the surface transportation sector, including work to support the development of railways, mass transit, and intelligent transportation systems. We are working with partners across the world to enhance mobility through smarter and more sustainable transportation solutions. I'd like to point to one example in particular in Istanbul, Turkey, where USTDA's support is helping to implement smarter, more advanced traffic control solutions that reduce congestion and increase the efficiency of urban transport systems. USTDA's support helps international project sponsors like transportation departments and transit operators to plan for key upgrades to their systems. That can include upgrades to support the energy efficiency of overall system use. And our work on passenger and freight rail improvements is also highlighted here on this slide. Next slide, please. To briefly contextualize USTDA's tools, again, USTDA is the project preparation agency of the US government. And so we help advance projects to the implementation stage by providing the critical technical analysis needed to substantiate and really plan for a project to reach financing and implementation. So we work closely with our US government interagency colleagues, including our Commerce Department, Department of Transportation, and Export-Import Bank partners represented here today to provide support at a critical early stage of project development, and also help to advance these projects to financing partners like the Export-Import Bank to ensure that overseas projects are being financed and implemented with US solutions. Next slide, please. I mentioned earlier that USTDA is a demand-driven agency, and we rely on input from companies like the ones represented here today to help us identify and develop the best project opportunities in our partner countries. USTDA is a grant funding organization, so we fund grant-based assistance for technical assistance, feasibility studies, and pilot projects. And our projects come from a variety of sources, but there are two principal avenues in which we receive proposals for USTDA support. The first is from overseas project sponsors that are seeking a US partner to execute technical assistance or a feasibility study. And they will come to us with a project concept or a need or a challenge, which we can help to facilitate or kind of fill the gap, that critical technical gap needed to advance their goals for system development. We also receive proposals directly from US firms that may have an existing international partner. And in this case, a US firm will propose a project to us, and they will look to take on the technical work associated with that project. USDA funds the technical work associated with the assistance. We are unable to support or fund the equipment associated with the project. And we are typically looking at capital-intensive projects, which could potentially lead to upwards of $10 million in US exports. Next slide, please. So in the beginning of today's presentation, Anna mentioned that we are considering looking forward to releasing a call for proposals under the climate partnership. And I did want to just touch on a few key points that USDA is looking at when we're evaluating a project proposal. More details and kind of guidance on those project proposals would be included in that call for proposals. But when we're thinking about new funding commitments, we are looking at the strength of the overseas partner. Do they have a track record in implementing successful projects in the transportation sector? Is the project a government priority? Has it received strong political support? And will it also help to achieve development impacts, such as reducing congestion or reducing greenhouse gas emissions? Does the project have access to financing? Is there a strong likelihood that the project will move forward successfully? And will the project lead to US exports? So we are looking for projects that do have a US solution nexus that could be implemented with US technologies, solutions, or services. And again, we are looking at capital intensive projects. So again, projects that would have strong opportunities or large opportunities for US firms. Next slide, please. So just to close, I would invite you to reach out directly to me or the USTDA team to discuss opportunities to partner with USTDA or to suggest new areas for us to consider. Our agency is organized by region, so we have various regional teams that represent and help to support opportunities in our partner countries. We are very excited to be working with ITS America and of course with you as members on new opportunities in our overseas markets. And so we hope you will engage with us and look forward to collaborating on new opportunities and hope you'll take a close look at some of those opportunities, including the call for proposals that we hope to launch soon. So I'll stop there. Thank you for your time. And I'm pleased to turn it over to Craig O'Connor of EXIM Bank.
Great. Well, good afternoon, everybody. And thank you very much for the opportunity to be with you here today. Thank you to ICS Americas as well as TDA. My presentation today will briefly touch upon what EXIM Bank is able to do and how we're able to help finance the exports that USTDA and US Department of Commerce have helped identify. And I kind of echo the last two speakers, Michael and Kevin. There's huge infrastructure needs outside the United States. Clearly, we have our needs here. But if you think about the urbanization that's taking place, and I think we're going to build more infrastructure around the world in the next 40 years than we've built in our history of the world. So it's pretty mind-boggling when you consider the amount of investment that's going to come in, and that requires financing. So we'll go to the next slide and just briefly introduce you. EXIM Bank is we've been involved in transportation really throughout our history. In fact, since we were established by FDR during 1934 to basically provide financing where it didn't otherwise exist, we financed the Burma Road during World War II. We financed the Pan American Highway earlier years. Later years, we financed toll roads in Romania as well as Croatia. We've been financing aircraft. People that know us, both our critics and our friends, know us as Boeing's bank. Yeah, we're Boeing's bank, but we're also Northrop Grumman's bank and Caterpillar's bank and First Solar's bank, and we're demand driven. So where U.S. technologies are cost competitive and financing can make a difference, then the EXIM Bank, I can tell you, will usually be the most cost effective source of financing U.S. goods and services. And I want to emphasize, it could be a standalone service provision. It could be standalone software provision. It could be kind of a mix. We financed a number of air traffic control systems in the one in the 1990s in the Republic of Georgia, and another one in Albania. And that required obviously equipment, but also training services and development. So our mission is essentially, as I mentioned before, to support US made goods and services, and also to get a reasonable assurance of repayment. So we do that through looking at underwriting direct loans, as it sounds, fixed rate US dollar direct loans from EXIM Bank. We also provide loan guarantees. And so that could be a US dollar loan. It could also be with our other partners. It could be a Euro loan, or it could be a Brazilian Reais loan, or other local currency loans. We're also able to provide export credit insurance. And so EXIM Bank, we don't have a minimum nor maximum project size. So I mean, sure, we can finance the big export projects, but we could also finance standalone export of services or other lower value goods through our export credit insurance program. If you're a small business, all of a sudden you find a nice problem to have is that you have a huge export order that you have to finance the build out for. We have a working capital guarantee program. So that's where EXIM Bank gives a 90% US government guarantee of a bank like a Wells Fargo or Bank of America or PNC Bank that would make a loan to your company to help you source materials, labor, overhead in order to meet that contract. On the loan guarantee side to the international buyer, it's 100% guaranteed. So basically we take the risk out of it for the commercial bank. And I like to think of EXIM Bank as crowding in cost-effective financing that can help US companies make a difference where you're already offering fantastic technology and services, but oftentimes there's a challenge. As I mentioned, the trillions that are needed to finance the anticipated infrastructure, financing can be constrained. And so that's EXIM Bank's role, particularly in emerging markets, in markets that lack maybe organized or yet to be developed capital market systems or banking systems. And that's where we can provide long-term financing. In our charter, which was renewed by Congress in its last iteration in December of 2019, 7-year charter, we have special language that continues the 1992 language to increase our support for environmentally beneficial exports. And I didn't really introduce myself, but just kind of on the fly. I've been at the bank for 28.5 years, and we work on interesting projects all the time, which has kept me there. In addition to my other duties, I am also the bank's environmental exports officer. So I'm also the bank's renewable energy officer. So we're clearly interested in technologies that can have a beneficial impact on climate, whether that's renewable energy, smart transportation, energy efficiency, et cetera. And so for renewable energy, for example, we're able to go out 18 years, and the rate as of January was 2.84%. And actually, it's still the same rate of 2.84%, and it's still the same 12-year rate of 2.31%, and that's fixed. We also charge a one-time country fee. We've been very active in renewable energy and many other different types of technologies. So we'll go to the next slide, and I'll tell you a little bit more about the programs. So our approach to lending, I mentioned getting a reasonable assurance of repayment. We can actually do that through getting a corporate guarantee. So we're lending to a creditworthy corporation. We can also lend to a creditworthy government. When I joined the bank all those years ago, probably 80% of our business had a government guarantee, a sovereign government guarantee. Well, today that's probably the reverse, because many sovereign governments have found themselves faced with large resource needs, but also constraints in their budget. And so if they're able to offset the operation of an airport or a toll road or other transportation to the private sector, and then provide a contract in the private sector, we can lend to that newly created company. So we lend on a corporate basis. We also lend on a project finance basis, where the repayment for the loan comes from the cash flows of the project. I don't think I mentioned yet, we financed probably close to $7 billion in satellites since 2000. And a lot of that was based on market analysis of the telecommunication services provided. Or we could provide financing for structured finance, which is probably ideal for projects, I would say under $50 million really, but where maybe the borrower has, in the foreign country, has just won a large contract. Their financial statement is good, but it's not that large to qualify for a larger loan. And so therefore we could look at the contract. We won't do a full-blown project finance approach that entails heavy financial and legal due diligence, but we'll look at that contract, we'll look at the existing financial condition of the foreign borrower, and then make a determination that a reasonable assurance of repayment exists. And we have loan officers that, I'm not unique in being at the bank for so long. There's many people that have been there for a very long time. So there's real expertise. And how long does something take to get approved Ex-Im Bank? It really depends on the quality of the application. I mean, corporate financing can be anywhere, it's typically 60 to 90 days. Project finance might take a little bit longer because you've got to look at all the different contracts that support that project. And structured finance can be a little bit longer than that. Export credit insurance can be done in a matter of days. Working capital can be done in a matter of weeks. So we're really working very closely, as we have all throughout our 87 plus year history in working with the private sector. And we'll go to the next slide. So the loan guarantee, as I mentioned, 100% guarantee unconditionally to US-based bank or foreign bank that's based in the US, or foreign bank that's based in the home country, to support financing of US-made goods and services. I should mention also that in our last charter, we were given special language to increase our competitiveness with China. And so we can take a look at transportation important projects being what we call transformational exports. And so based on a review of that project, Ex-Im Bank might be able to finance a lower content, US content of the transaction. So here on the third bullet I mentioned, we finance 85% of the US content on medium and long term. So why 85%? Well, there's a OECD Export Credit Agency rule that you have to receive a 15% cash payment by the foreign buyer. Then Ex-Im Bank is able to finance 85% of the US export. Plus, we can also finance local costs up to 30%. the value of the US export. So let me give you an example how that might work. So, say you have a $100 million export, there's a 15% cash payment. Exim Bank could make a loan of 115 million. So 85 plus another 30 million. So there may be local costs in terms of subcontracting or local materials, labor, overhead. And so we can finance a considerable amount of the project. So going back to the loan guarantees, so a lot of times the banks, because it's 100% back to the US government, they might sell off the loan. We're also able to guarantee local bond issuances, which can be quite interesting when you're talking about large infrastructure projects that have very long terms. So we'll go to the next slide, please. So just a couple of examples of how did this work. This is water treatment, and this was biomicrobics out of Kansas City. They exported 10 modular water treatment systems to a customer in Mexico that, by the way, had a contract with a large retailer in Mexico, otherwise known as Walmart de Mexico. So this is water treatment. I know we're talking about transportation, but I figured the example would still hold true. We'll go to the next slide. Geothermal services export. I won't give you all the details in that, but basically it illustrates our ability to finance standalone services, 15-year loan guarantee. Go to the next slide. Barbados solar roof system, one of the largest ever in the Caribbean, 10-year loan guarantee to PNC Bank that financed this deal. We'll go to the next one. And this is one, it may be, in the future, it's less about, the physical goods and services that you see, but it's in the intelligence, it's the software, it's a license, the intellectual property that you have that basically makes the transportation smart, right? It's the brains of the system. And so you can actually think about selling licenses to use your technology in a transportation project internationally. And that technology license could be part of the export transaction. So you can provide the goods, the services, the licenses as well. It could be the sale of a license in and of itself. And so there's a couple examples of our financing of licenses. And clearly there's benefits here. Number one is you can monetize your intellectual property. So if you've got a proof of concept that you've used in the United States and there's training, there's licenses, there's other engineering, there's services, goods, you can actually monetize that by going global, expanding into new markets. USTDA can help you with that with feasibility studies, and the US Department of Commerce, they can actually introduce you to partners on the ground in Turkey, in Brazil, in Ukraine. And it's invaluable. And some of those people that work in those international markets, and I've met a lot of them over the years, those people have been there for 30 plus years. A lot of them, they work for the US government. They're citizens of the host country. They know all the business folks. They know the government folks. And so the point is you're really connecting to a powerful network here today that can help you with introductions, help you with project intelligence, and also help advocacy as well as providing feasibility study support. So companies can then provide financing to customers as part of the sale of the IP related services. And again, in markets where access to financing really makes a difference. So we'll go to the next slide. So direct loan, I think I'm going to skip over that. It's as it sounds. It's essentially it's a fixed rate that's based on the running average, monthly average of 30-day treasuries, and then the time of the first disbursement of the financing of the project. The loan is fixed for the term, and typical terms could be anywhere from 10 years to 14 years on project finance, even out to 18 years, depending on the nature of the project. Go to the next slide. Just a few examples. Another water treatment example. We'll skip over that because I want to save some time maybe for Q&A. Waste capture off a landfill in Brazil. This is an interesting case you guys can read on your own. Go to the next slide. Wind power in Costa Rica. Skip that. Peru wind projects. Clearly financing for environmentally beneficial projects in all different types of technologies. And clearly We're really just starting with smart transportation. So that's why I don't have a huge exhaustive list. So, when we come back in 2 years, then I'll have this populated by lots of different smart transportation examples. Go to the next slide. But historically, clearly we have it. Well, in terms of fuel, environmentally beneficial fuel, we find, again, U.S. technology that was perfected in the United States. We provided a direct loan of $124 million to finance the export, sale, and design and services of an ethanol plant in Hungary. And in this case, repayment term was 8 years, supported a number of U.S. suppliers, Fagan Inc. out of Granite Falls, Minnesota, ICM of Colwich, Kansas, another number of other suppliers that you see here. So, clearly, whether it's, we're technology agnostic. So any type of technology that, again, is supported from the US, we're able to support. Go to the next slide. Export credit insurance, I mentioned. This could be very, very valuable in terms of if you're providing lower cost exports of goods or services, where the customer, you might not be sure the customer's creditworthiness. If you ask for cash in advance, they may not have it. If you ask for a letter of credit from their bank, it's very costly. And so we think that offering open account, which means that you provide the service or ship the goods, and then your buyer promises to pay you over 90 days or 120 days or 360 days, an example of capital goods, might represent kind of a risk to you as a small business. And so we provide 100% political risk insurance, 95% commercial risk insurance for your small business, and very straightforward. If you're a company that you have recurring sales to different companies internationally, you get one insurance policy. It's called a multi-buyer policy. You establish credit limits for your once a year for your customers, and they can buy from you on revolving credit. And this is a program that is fantastic. And we have thousands and thousands of companies that are with us on this program. Go to the next slide. One example is Environmental Dynamics. I happen to like the name a lot. Also was our first ever environmental insurance program. Another company that's established in the US, decided to go global in 1992. They were providing water treatment systems for essentially farms and other facilities in Missouri, primarily in the US Midwest. Decided to go global, and today they've got sales and distribution over 30 countries, and their employment has probably quintupled since they started to export. So great success story. Go to the next slide. Working capital guarantees, I mentioned, 90% repayment for working capital loans, revolving loans, transaction-related loans. And basically, the working capital guarantee serves as collateral to the commercial lender. It mitigates the risk. And so it means that the commercial bank is able to, instead of offering you zero financing for work in progress, they can offer you 75% loan for work in progress. Instead of not much for inventory, they can offer you 75% lend out for inventory, 90% for accounts receivable. If you need to put up a bid or performance bond, you need financing for that. Working capital can be used in that. We mostly deal with delegated authority lenders. And so you first approach the bank, similar to the SBA program. You first approach the bank. They are able to, up to a certain delegated authority, commit Ex-Im Bank guarantee for working capital loans they can make to your business. Anything that comes out of certain parameters comes back to us to analyze, but most of this is done through the working capital guarantee program. Go to the next slide. Case study of Aquatech International. They've been doing business for years in the Middle East, where the customers haven't needed our financing, but Aquatech as a small business has needed Ex-Im Bank's working capital. And this has been in some pretty large transactions. And so they've relied on our working capital guarantees and standby LCs for a long time. And it's export supported by Ex-Im Bank make up roughly half of their business, to quote Mr. Sharma. So this is, again, it's a fantastic tool at your disposal. It's we're, again, clearly focused on increasing our support and to be as forward-leaning as possible to grow our portfolio in climate-related smart transportation sectors as well as other sectors. Go to the next slide, which is our conclusion. So short, medium, long-term financing to creditworthy customers. working capital guarantee to U.S. exporters. I can tell you, and I don't work on commission, maybe fortunately or unfortunately, Ex-Im Bank will be the most cost-effective source of U.S. dollar financing for sure for your international customers. Again, it enables you to offer credit terms, but not have the risk of non-payment. The biggest challenge, people ask me, what's the biggest challenge of using Ex-Im Bank? It's just establishing the creditworthiness of the international customers. So we don't insist on an absolute assurance of repayment, but we do want a reasonable assurance of repayment. We do a due diligence. And so sometimes when you're talking about public sector projects, we oftentimes may need a Ministry of Finance guarantee to support public sector projects. But anyway, I'm happy to dialogue with you anytime that you have a potential transaction and you want to see what the best way is to structure it. So thank you so much again, and look forward to any questions that you have. Thank you.
Well, Anna, Kevin, Jason, Craig, and Michael, thank you all so much. We're right at 2 o'clock Eastern, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap up. But for the members that are on the webinar, if you're interested in learning more, please let me know. I will be continuing to work with the USTDA team on this partnership and making sure that they have your information and that we're connected as we all move forward. And that includes on the next steps with their proposals and virtual conferences, workshops. So again, we are right at time. So I want to thank everyone for taking time today to join us. And we will look forward to connecting with everyone in the near future. So thank you again, and I hope everyone has a great day.